How can you arrange a prime number of identical shapes in a rectangle? The obvious answer is you can't, or rather you can, but it'll be a very long, thin rectangle. But that's not a very helpful answer if it's 1890 and your job is to design the new flag of the United States. For 1 week in 1890 there were 43 states in the USA, but that week happened to include July the 4th, which is when they update the flag. It's like the tax year, but for flags. So for an entire year, the flag looked like this. I mean, honestly, it's just lucky that the Pledge of Allegiance hadn't been invented yet, because they don't make people swear allegiance to the United States, they make them swear allegiance to the flag and the republic for which it stands. But mostly the flag. And can you imagine swearing allegiance to this? It's terrible. It looks like someone dragged the little triangles around at the top of Microsoft Word and can't remember where they're meant to go. Although for any Americans watching, the thing everybody else thinks is weird about the Pledge of Allegiance you make school children recite is not the lyrics. If you're wondering, this extra star in the corner, that's Idaho. I'm extremely cross at Idaho. But they're not the only offenders. In 1859, a star was added for Oregon, bringing the total from an almost impossibly divisible 32 to 33, which isn't prime but isn't helpful either. These days, when a new state joins the Union, the flag design is updated by executive order, which means that the president gets to choose whatever crazy flag they want. So maybe it's for the best that Puerto Rico wasn't granted statehood between 2017 and 2021. Who knows what the hell we'd have ended up with. But back in the day, the rules just said 13 red and white stripes, blue box, however many stars, and it was up to the flag manufacturers to arrange them however they felt best. There were 4 common 33-star flags. The best one was this one, but we also, impressively for 1859, had both the ship and the aliens from Space Invaders, and we also had the most amateurish flag ever flown by a recognised nation, the Great Star. Now, when I first saw this, I assumed it was just classic American bombast. Like, I know you like stars, so put your stars in a star so you can star while you star, but actually this makes a lot of sense as a naval standard. If you picture this from a distance and it's blurry, you can still kind of make out the one star. It doesn't just blur into a field of light blue like the rectangular arrangement might. And the 26-state version of this design was gorgeous. But there just isn't a nice way to arrange 33 stars into a star. It fundamentally doesn't work, and even the pristine SVG version on Wikipedia is a mess. Look at it, it's got a heptagon in the middle of a 5-pointed star, and the 2 near each point invade each other's space like cogwheels. It's just inelegant. That said, if your goal is to make your flag distinctive at sea, don't have 50 stars and 13 stripes. Just do a nice trickle of it anyone can get right, or else of course people are going to come up with this hot mess, where they've just tried to sneak Nebraska into a 6x6 grid without really changing it. We'll just sneak it in, just a little Nebraska as a treat. Ludicrous. Except the original flag had 13 states, 13 stripes, 13 stars, and they were arranged in a rectangle, and it worked just fine. Incidentally, they also planned to add a stripe every time a state joined, but luckily they didn't, or else eventually there'd have been 50 stripes on this thing, and it would have aliased on television. Honestly, I think if they'd done that, PAL would have caught on in the States. But there they are, 13 stars in a rectangle. Because you might not be able to multiply to 13, but you can add. 13 is 3 3s plus 2 2s. And they just interleave into each other like this. And this shouldn't be a big surprise, because the current 50-state flag is not a 5x10 grid. It's a 6x5 grid with a 5x4 inside it. It turns out you can do this for any number that you can express as AB plus CD, where A and C are within 1 of each other, and B and D are within 1 or 2. And the ratios are about right, but it's not too long and thin or tall to fit in the canton, which is the blue bit. And that's nearly any number. After a certain point, there's just so many options, one of them's nearly bound to work. So could they have done a good flag for 33 or 43 states? Is my rage at Idaho justified, or should I be saving it for 19th century flag manufacturers who just made it terrible voluntarily? Well, 33 is 6 2s and 7 3s, so this would have worked. And 43 is 8 2s and 9 3s, so this would have worked. And yeah, it turns out just put them in a diagonal rectangle works really well. It's the best way of doing it. I mean, 50 stars, we could have put in a great star, and 51, you could just put one in the middle, but 52 is not going to work, and in any case, these stars are too small now. And you can't make them bigger than you can with the rectangle. Okay, you can, but shape packing turns out to give some really weird-looking arrangements, and this is just not good. I mean, I've used the shape packing for circles here, because to my knowledge, the shape packing for stars hasn't been solved, but ultimately, stars are a really awkward shape because they're fivefold symmetrical and pentagons don't tile the plane unless you're at the Academy of Unseen Arts. And yes, I'm aware that we have on occasion had the same hair, so there's no reason to point that out in the comments. Of course, pentagons do tessellate on a sphere, but that doesn't really work for a flag, and they also tessellate in hyperbolic space. And while having a hyperbolic flag would allow an infinite number of states to join on a finite canton, and be just extremely on brand, I think this would be a bit much.